and to catch the earliest warning possible indications. What happens a lot is that people wait until visible physical damage appears to know that something's wrong, which is the same thing we saw happening in stream work. And I was like, oh, we need to grow about 70% more food now than we ever have before by 2050. The human population is expected to expand by 2 billion people, and we have to supplement food production because we don't have enough arable land, and fresh water is becoming increasingly scarce. So that means we need to learn how to grow indoors, and we need data intelligence to do that.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today we have a special guest, Jennifer Wells. She is the CEO of Lateral Systems. She previously was an educator and now turned AgTech startup founder. So Jennifer, tell us a little bit about what your role entails at Lateral Systems and how it fits into the bigger picture there.
Hi, thank you, Jared. Thanks for inviting me onto your new podcast. I'm excited to be one of the first guests here. So my role is CEO and co-founder of Lateral Systems. And what we're doing is that we're 4 years into developing a water and atmospheric conditions monitoring platform. So my role on the team is that of co-founder and scientist. And then the rest of the team are all engineers. So a lot of my role is learning how to communicate to the engineers what we need to develop to help farmers to get data insights to help with their fine tuning of what they're doing in the farm.
Yeah, it sounds kind of like that analogy of you tell the engineer you want a tree swing, but then you have to be very specific about actually how to make it and everything.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your co-founder.
Yeah. My co-founder is Ed Lyle, and he was at Intel for 35 years. And the final 15 years, he was the director of Intel Labs. So prior to co-founding Lateral, he had actually managed hundreds of people across the globe doing very similar development work or leading similar development work to what we're doing here, which is why when we met and I explained the problem, he was like, oh, I totally know how to lead that development. Let's do it. Yeah.
And I want to touch a little bit more on your background because I did mention you were an educator. How did you transition from that into being a co-founder of an AgTech startup?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So I'm a forest restoration ecologist and a STEM educator. My doctoral degree is in curriculum and instruction and focused on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. So the way that I transitioned is, I had been doing for about 30 years teacher professional development and involving adults in learning things that would be novel enough to them to where they would disclose the things that they didn't know because they wouldn't worry so much about not looking professional because basically nobody knew. So things like working in streams and dedicating teams along different reaches of streams. But the problem that I found with that is that people oftentimes would use different different product lines for monitoring. So like Hawk and YSI and all these different sensor systems that weren't necessarily calibrated the same way. So that was a big frustration because we weren't really sure about the validity of the data or the precision of the measurements. And we were using those actually to guide what we were doing with stream restoration work. So then in 2021, I got a grant to build 2 aquaponic systems as a research bench. And then all of a sudden COVID hit and I didn't have the students at Portland State University that I thought I was going to have. So I looked around to instrument the system and I very quickly realized that aquaponics was harder than I thought. I needed to monitor it all the time, even when I wasn't there, because when things go sideways, since everything grows faster inside, including pathogens, it happens like within hours. And what I wanted didn't exist. There were monitoring platforms that had been developed for cannabis that were really prohibitively expensive and didn't measure all the parameters that I needed to measure. And I realized it was so analogous with the stream work that I'd done, in that if people aren't using instrumentation that's calibrated the same way across aquaponic systems, it's really hard to compare data with other farmers to be able to get better at this and to catch the earliest warning possible indications. What happens a lot is that people wait until visible physical damage appears to know that something's wrong, which is the same thing we saw happening in stream work. And I was like, oh, we need to grow about 70% more food now than we ever have before by 2050. The human population is expected to expand by 2 billion people, and we have to supplement food production because we don't have enough arable land, and fresh water is becoming increasingly scarce. So that means we need to learn how to grow indoors, and we need data intelligence to do that. And so that's how I was able to talk my husband and family into, even though I spent so many years getting the doctoral degree and all the experience working in universities and K-12s, like I needed to partner with Ed and develop a monitoring platform, drawing on his expertise and also drawing on all the things that I know about how people acquire the ability to interpret graphic representations of data and apply those to treatment. So I knew that I play an important role as somebody who knows how people acquire the skills and knowledge of science, and I could build that into what we're doing.
Do you think that if COVID hadn't happened, you would have been like caught between a rock and a hard place in the same way? Or maybe not because you would have
I
had
might
students and
have. Honestly, I probably would have, because even before COVID, life was super, super busy with a lot of, competing deadlines. I'm pretty sure at some point around that time, I would have been looking for a continuous automated monitoring solution. There were ones that I was hearing about that were proprietary that I couldn't buy off the shelf.
mm,
And so I already knew about those. But I didn't know that there was just literally like nothing that I could afford off the shelf. So I think that I probably would have come to a similar decision about what to do career-wise, but maybe not with the same timing.
okay, nice. So it accelerated that.
I did.
So what does a typical day look like for you?
Oh gosh, there really is no typical day right now. I mean, my primary priorities right now, because we're at technical readiness level 6, which means that over the last 4 years, we've developed to the point where we've now field tested and we have an MVP ready to launch into pilot previews. So what that means is that every day has to be focused on fundraising, either through grants and attracting investment. So we're in a seed round right now, seeking $2 million. It has to be focused on that, or it has to be focused on, we've got one farmer lined up for our pilot preview. I need another one. So I'm looking for another good site. We're also going into a community college. So it's managing that relationship, because we're very intentionally thinking about workforce development and the fact that we're looking around for people that could serve as field techs to go to farms, and there's a gap. They we haven't been able to find people that would be suitable candidates who have agronomic knowledge as well as the technical knowledge. So that's a big piece, is actually working with workforce development preparation. And then another piece of what I'm doing is that we're starting an AgTech hub for Oregon. And that's kind of the bigger picture, that workforce development piece. But we realized that there were some significant gaps in terms of knowledge of networked programs for startups like our own. And it took like 3 years for people to tell us about important resources that were out there for us. And we're like, okay, this is going to slow down adoption of ag tech. And it's going to actually make it so it's really not very democratic, because only the people in the know are going to find out about it. So I do spend quite a lot of time around that. And it's not going to benefit my company too. It totally does benefit my company too.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm putting pieces in place so that others will actually not have the same pain points that we are.
Well, that's awesome. You already have one pilot farm. Last we
Yeah.
spoke, you were looking for two, and now you got one. That
Yeah,
was
that's
quick.
right. That's right. I got one last week on Friday, who I've been cultivating for 3 years and done numerous customer discovery interviews with. So she saw this coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. So, what major shifts are you seeing in your industry right now?
Yeah. So over the last year, we've seen a bit of recovery in the controlled environment agriculture industry. However, the 2 years prior to that, what we saw was massive investment that had happened, and people had overestimated how much lettuce markets really needed. And they got a little bit too fancy. They just spent too much money on developing very, very high tech indoor farms. And you don't really necessarily need it to be quite that level of high tech to grow things like lettuce and basil. So we saw a real crash of quite a few big, particularly enterprise scale farms. Um, as far as mid-scale farms that we're targeting, we did see a little less of a crash happening there, but over the last year or so, we have seen a resurgence of the growth rate, both for enterprise and mid-scale farms, which is really promising for our company. We are expecting that this will continue because, as I mentioned, the freshwater scarcity issue is not going away. And the reduction of available arable land problem is not going away, and the population is continuing to grow. So
Yeah.
we know that people are basically figuring out how to right size the investment levels, and they're understanding what it looks like to get ahead of your skis. So that's really great news for our company because we're looking at a very like a multi-billion dollar industry globally, and North America is the fastest growing sector of the controlled environment agriculture industry. So that's promising for us because that's our beachhead is starting in the first 3 to 5 years in the US.
Okay. And how is that trend impacting your own business or growth strategy?
Yeah. Well, we have seen a reduction in availability of funding. Um, investors have a little bit of, some investors have a little bit of cold feet because they either got burned
Yeah.
or they saw their friends. Investors all tend to kind of know each other, and particularly in ag tech, it's a fairly small community. And so they're watching carefully to see who is successful in getting past certain milestones. And they're a little more hesitant than they were before. They're waiting a little longer. So that's one thing. And then also federal funding has seen a downturn. Um, some of the programs have gone away, some of them are just being reorganized, so they're not available, which is we think that they will become available again. They just will be looking a little different, which is rough for us because we're at the point where we have a good MVP. We have um, created the compute architecture for some really wonderful features, and now we need more money to actually develop on that architecture, and it's hard to get it right now. So we are optimistic. I was an academic for years. I'm actually, frankly, kind of used to gaps in funding and just continuing forward with what you can. So that's happening. And it's good that the leader of this company does have that experience and
Yeah.
not willing to freak out because this happens. This is normal. Um, yeah, and we are, like I said, we are seeing a resurgence of investment. So I'm hopeful that we'll get the right investment group together that really understands that this is a situation that requires patience.
Yeah. And it sounds like you have that patience as well, that this is a long-term play.
Yeah,
You're
I'm an ecologist.
yeah.
We think like the mountain. So,
It's not all about, the fast food and, instant gratification and all this stuff.
right, right, right. It's interesting you should say that because we've been through 5 business accelerators. We're in one right now. And you get a range of different perspectives from people who have been successful serial entrepreneurs who are now VCs. Kind of the older school mindset, which does continue to work for lots of people, is that if you're not developing fast and going to revenue really fast, then you're just a hobbyist. But that doesn't, I'm a scientist. I don't think like that. I don't think that that's a correct way to think about this. We need to actually test with real people now, watch how they work with the technology, and really be careful to iterate based on what people actually need and want and will pay for,
Yeah.
not on what's going to earn the fast buck.
Yeah. It makes sense. You got to please the venture capitalist, but also got to, do things right so that you last through the years.
That's right. We're going to last and we're going to make a big difference. We're going to help farmers feed literally billions of people. So we have to keep our eye on that goal.
Yeah, I love it. I love that vision. Eye on the prize, right?
That's right.
So, what's working well for you right now, and what's been frustrating?
Yeah. Well, what's working really well is by June this last summer, I felt confident that our field testing results were putting us in a place where we could actually start to cultivate those relationships with potential investors. And up to that point, there are a lot of programs that I hadn't even heard about, even though I'm a researcher and I have a really solid network. But then I did hear about them. That's good. So here in Oregon, we have Oregon Entrepreneur Network, and I was part of them, but they hadn't told me about some of the programs yet. Maybe they didn't think I was ready to be told. And then Oregon Tie, and then I was already part of the Technical Association of Oregon, and we also joined the equivalent in Arizona. And so between these organizations, then we've been introduced to all these opportunities like pitch clubs, which are pretty informal situations where you go and you do your pitch with your pitch deck with a round table circle of experienced investors who give you really great feedback on how you can improve your pitch. So not only am I getting feedback to improve my pitch, but I'm also getting known in the investment community, which is very helpful. Um, Other pieces that are helpful is I was at Portland State for almost 30 years. And so I have deep connections there that interestingly enough, going to these pitch events and more informal mixers with investors has introduced me to people that are in different colleges than I worked in at the same university. So for example, the School of Business. And I'm now working with folks from an MBA program, and we're planning a spring capstone project for a group of 4 to 5 graduate students who are, for the most part, career changers, programmers that are earning an MBA now. So they can develop on some of our compute architecture to enable, with machine learning, some AI features. So that's wonderful, or at least they'll be able to lay some foundations for us. So we're able to leverage resources creatively. We also have some wonderful relationships with folks down in Arizona in terms of helping to recruit candidate engineers for us so that we're lining up, the kind of the senior level engineers that we're going to need next. So those are things that are going well. Then our new farm is going great. That's a really big farm that grows the majority of the seedlings for Oregon and Washington farms, part of Idaho. So,
Oh.
and not only that, that's their own operation. They also lease out numerous greenhouses and long-term leases to people like Weyerhaeuser that grows trees for reforestation, which is really important to me because I'm a forest restoration ecologist. So that
Yeah.
was great to have the opportunity to instrument, those greenhouses too. Um, so that's going great. Things that are hard, well, I kind of touched on it earlier. Funding. Funding is hard for us right now. We really need a couple $1,000,000 to go the next step. We're excited that we're going to start to generate revenue so that when people keep the people we already have. But in order to really develop the features that we have, the compute architecture design, which is a major heavy lift, it's awesome. We need more money to actually go ahead and do that development. So that's a big pain point for us right now.
Do you think that's just unique to your company, or do you think it's
No.
unique to the industry?
No, it's not. I don't know if it's unique for any industry right now. I mean, what I keep hearing at these mixers and pitch events is that we should really emphasize the AI piece that we're doing. And that's where a lot of the investment is going. So it's fortunate that that's what we're already planning on doing. For example, we're enabling predictive analytics. And that is kind of a buzzword in manufacturing, in all kinds of sectors right now. So what that means is we're triangulating known biochemical and physical interrelationships with real-time data and historical data trends in order to come up with better statistically significant predictions of impending imbalances and cascades of imbalances. So that's a really powerful thing because again, you don't want to wait until physical damage is actually evident
Yeah.
to head a problem off before it happens. We're also enabling detection of equipment malfunction. So early before a big problem is happening. And that's kind of a big buzzword in the industry too. So for those companies that are like us, that are enabling those types of features in their solution, they seem to be having better success than others. So that gives us reason to hope too that it's just around the corner. We'll find the right group.
Yeah, that makes sense. And with this predictive analytics, I mean, it's what a machine can do in an instant that the human eye could barely maybe even see after, a very long amount of time. Like
Right,
you'd have to be
right,
very trained to be able to see the same things the machine can just predict.
right.
Yeah,
Exactly. I mean, so we've intercepted data in our data pipeline, which is very exciting. That's one of the first things you have to do to start training a model.
yeah.
So, for example, in our lab, we closed up all the windows and doors, and when lights go down, plants have specialized cells called stomata. And when those stomata open, they release CO2 into the atmosphere. And over the next couple hours, the water pH will go down as the CO2 goes up. But when the sun comes up or the lights go on, that CO2 will decrease and the pH will naturally self-correct. So you don't actually have to do anything in that situation. Really, you can save labor and compound if you know that that's a natural cycle and to
Yeah.
not do anything. So not only are we doing what you're saying, Jarrett, of like detecting something that's happening that's not good, we can also detect natural cycles with machine learning training and provide message notifications that don't de-skill workers, right? They actually help people to become more sensitive to the data signals and understand the agronomic implications of those data signals.
Yeah. I've always considered myself to have a bit of a green thumb, I love growing plants, but sometimes I'm like, what's wrong with it? I don't know what to do. It looks sick,
Yeah,
but why?
right, right. But you have a catalog as you get more experience that's in your head
Yeah.
of what all the potential problems will be. And hopefully you use Occam's razor. And you realize like the most obvious, simple solution is probably the right one. And I
Yeah.
should probably start with that. And that's part of what we're working on doing is actually helping people to get that catalog generated for master growers to be able to communicate. This is what I see when I look. Because you get so used to doing stuff, it's hard to explain something that's just habit. But
Yeah.
by providing these graphic representations of data, it gives them something to respond to, a head grower to explain what they see in a way that becomes highly contextualized to the workers so that they figure out like, oh, here's the relevance of why I should pay attention to this. And then they'll see it again and again and again, and they'll develop the same catalog over time, just the way we have for thousands and thousands of years. This really isn't anything brand new. It's just a different way of delivering the information.
Yeah. And you've touched on so many points of how you're improving your pitch, how you're improving so many different things. What is the most critical metric you're focused on improving in order to get that seed funding?
Oh yeah, I mean we need to get traction in the market and testimonials. So that's partly why we're going ahead and launching with the particular farm that we're working with. Um, it's a really big farm. A lot of people know them. They're third generation, so they're highly trusted. That's really important. The farm owner, she serves on many state level committees. She's also a 4-H mentor. So
Mm.
she's really known and trusted, not only because she's smart, but because she's very active, and people watch early adopters like her to see how well it works out. So particularly in agriculture, but I think this is true of a lot of industries. When somebody's thinking about adopting novel technology, they like to watch somebody for 2 or 3 years and see, like, what's the ROI on that, and what's the adoption cycle look like, and what are some of those pain points that I can anticipate, that I need to plan for, and just know that they're going to happen. I have to put some resources around how we're going to navigate those pain points. And so that's partly why we're working with this particular farmer, is that she's part of a program called Ag Launch. She has gone through these kinds of cycles before, like multiple times. She's also an innovator herself, has actually designed and had built several different wonderful AgTech solutions for her own farm. So she kind of knows what it's like. So not only is she going to be patient, but she's going to be like amazing in terms of testimonials that are going to help us show that we're real and that this is helpful. Also, when you read literature about controlled environment agriculture and the difference that it makes in terms of saving water, um, and production level, like productivity can be up to 5 times higher, for example, if you're doing it right. If you're not, it's not higher. But the metrics aren't very well standardized. And so you're like, oh, that feels a little smoke and mirrors that you're making this claim when you haven't collected data in a rigorous manner. And so working with this particular farmer, when looking at a couple others that we've been talking with for years, that would be really great in terms of helping us to establish those standardized metrics and collect data over time so that we can hold these up, not only our results, but the methods, so that we can say this is solid data of how it actually improves your efficiencies on the farm.
Based on what you said, that sounds like a big win partnering with that farm.
Yeah,
And no wonder you've been cultivating that for 3 years,
yeah,
to make that happen.
yeah, right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, where do you want to be 6 to 12 months from now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we want to be fully funded. We want to have a full engineering team of up to 12 people working out of the Tucson, Arizona region. It's very dry, and yet they do have some access to less expensive energy. So we anticipate that that's a place where more rapid adoption of controlled environment agriculture, indoor farming is likely to occur. We have a great partnership developing with the University of Arizona at Tucson. So we expect that that will continue to develop. We also are going to have demonstration sites in other institutions of higher ed. University of Maryland is one of those sites where they have an aquaponic system, and they're asking us to instrument there. Kentucky State University, where they're doing some amazing work around plant growth promoting microorganisms, which are microbes that help plants to uptake nutrients, or even downregulate the nutrients that they take up. Say if you want to grow plants for a particular medical requirement in people, like less potassium is good for people experiencing kidney failure or heart disease. So we want to instrument there, not only as a demonstration site, but also to help researchers there that are developing these capabilities by understanding those symbiotic relationships better. We also want to go into a year from now, we should be in, well, we are going in actually this month into a community college, and we should have gone a long way in developing the workforce development training program and have students going through this program by then that will then be ready for being field techs for us and for other ag tech companies. We see that happening. And we see expanding. I mean, we're doing pilot previews right now with just 2 farms over this year. Next year, we'll expand to 7 farms, and we'll be we'll be moving through white glove service with the installation process and then helping them kind of how do they integrate the technology into the workflow. And we're documenting all that so that we can make videos that will help guide people through so then we can become a little less white glove, a little, and it will become a little more turnkey with these educational materials in place to support that turnkey approach so that we are in a position to scale throughout the United States.
That is that's a lot to do in the next 6 to 12 months. You're gonna have your hands full for sure.
That's what we're doing.
So you mentioned the goal for the business is to find more investors.
Yeah.
If you had a magic wand to fix just one thing in your business that's holding you back or slowing you down, what would that one thing be?
Do you mean in addition to fundraising?
Well, in like to get that, like if that's the big goal for your business right
Yeah.
now, what one
Yeah.
thing could you fix with a magic wand?
Okay. So the one that I mean, fundraising is the big thing right now. Ultimately, a non-dilutive grant would be great. That would be great. We got turned down on a couple of grants recently because we mentioned climate change too frequently. So there was an algorithm that caught it, and we were not funded. So I can't wave that wand. My wands are not strong enough to fix that problem. But so if there's not a grant available right now, it's an investment group actually. So an early investor that would come in maybe with a pre-seed level of somewhere around $600,000 would actually enable us to hire the next level up of senior engineers that we need. And then ultimately $2 million is what we need to build the entire team of 12 to be able to enable all the features that we have the compute architecture designed to do. But, I don't know if listeners have ever done this kind of thing before, but you design the architecture, you do multiple rounds of validation, and then you start to build on it. And sometimes that architecture doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you have to go back and fix it. And so that's why we need such a significant infusion of funding is to do those rounds of development and do it well so it truly works.
It'd be hard. As an engineer, I know it would be hard to just rely on your co-founder to like do all the development cycles, and it
That's
just
not
takes
happening.
so much longer, you know?
Yeah, no, I don't even think that's possible for what we're doing. Because we've been really fortunate with our team. We have an expert database developer. We have a full stack developer who leads the team. We have a UI specialist, and then we have this wonderful woman who is a mechanical engineer, a programmer, an agronomist. Like she's amazing, and she knows how to work with machine learning model development too. Like, how do you like that's quite a package
Yeah.
usually. So yeah, we have an amazing team. And now we're ready for senior level people to come in to help to cultivate what this team is capable of doing.
That sounds so fun. I've been at a company in the past where they were deep in the development cycle of all this little hardware, and it was just fun to watch and see like how that helped the company to grow and everything. So
And yeah, yeah, it is fun. I've been a part of lots of different cycles like that are analogous, not exactly like this, but bringing together experts that all bring like wonderful, unique talents that we couldn't do without any of those pieces.
yeah. Well, this has been amazing. I love the vision and the prize that you have your eye on and how it's going to be helping humanity for the future. So, for any of our listeners, how would they get a hold of you if they're maybe a venture capitalist or maybe they're a farmer and they want to partner with you? How would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so our email is info at lateral.systems. And that's a great way. You could also look us up, Lateral Systems, online. And just to give you the heads up, it's basically a shell of a website right now. We're so not about smoke and mirrors. So we did not put a ton of energy into creating a website that would be used for marketing because that's not what it's for right now. But it does give you some sense of who we are and how to get in touch with us.
That's good. So thank you, Jennifer. It's been a real pleasure talking to you today and learning about your company. And for any of our listeners, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks.
Thanks, Jarrett.